peace, it's really up to us. When I ask anybody, is peace important to you? They always say yes. But yet somehow there seems to be a disconnect. How much work is done in peace, it doesn't seem to be commensurate with the effort that's going in. The results don't seem to commensurate with what's going in. Why is that the case? It's because everybody seems to work in their own little bubble. There's not enough collaboration. And in collaboration is truly how we're going to make a difference, because the amount of violence, physical violence, social violence, financial violence is much, much too high in the world. And when one person is suffering, we are all impacted. Today, I have the pleasure of sharing with you some peace activists, committed peace activists, who have shown us in the world what they can do to collaborate, to truly make a difference in peace in the world. The first person up is Rudy Westervelt. He is a passionate advocate for peace. He's a co-founder for Rotary World Peace E-Club, and he also is a past governor for Rotary. Plus, he is the convener of Rotary's 2016 and 2020 World Peace Conference. He is also the president of Solutions for Peace Foundation and a board member for Plan for Life, a nonprofit that helps manage the group homes for foster children who have serious socialization issues. He is also a meditator. He is also a member of the Mediators Beyond Borders. And I met Rudy through our association with Rotary, and also as a co-founder of Rotary E-Club for World Peace. And I know that Rudy will share with you how he, as an individual and collectively with all these different organizations he works with, has really made a difference. Rudy Westervelt, please join us.
Thank you, Marilyn. It's really an honor to be with you today. And it's interesting, the journey that we each take to find peace in our lives and in the world. My journey started 13 years ago when somebody gave me the gift to become a member of Lake Arrowhead Mountain Sunrise Rotary Club at the same time with my wife after working on a service project. That gift caused me to learn more about the extent and reach of Rotary that goes global. Rotary is the largest and oldest humanitarian organization in the world. Started 115 years ago. And our 1.2 million members today reach every country, are located in every country and territory around the world. And they're action oriented. They don't visualize problems, they visualize them as opportunities and look for solutions to create positive change. What I enjoy about our reach in Rotary with 1.2 million members is that we have created peace through service. When we reach out with our hand and welcome somebody in friendship, when we develop relationships around the world, at conferences, working on projects together, we are 1.2 million strong peace builders every day, working in our communities to make a difference. And also, what's amazing about Rotary is our ability not just to connect, but to take down those barriers between nations, races, religions, cultures, so that we're one humanity working together to create positive change in the world. And exactly what our Rotarians are, they model the be the change makers of the world. My journey in Rotary has been amazing and connecting that to peace. In January of 2020, I had the opportunity to be the convener and chair for Rotary World Peace Conference 2020, a two-day conference that we held at the Ontario Convention Center in Ontario, California. We put that conference together because I thought it was important for people to know that peace is just not the absence of war. Peace is really a lot more than that. It's peace that we have to have within each of us, within our homes and our families, our schools, our businesses, in our communities, locally and around the world. And to do that, I thought there was no better way than to bring experts with solutions to major issues from human trafficking and child abuse and domestic violence, suicide prevention, and a variety of other problem solvers. 150 of them came together for those 2 days to share their solutions to these issues so that our attendees could go back home and make a positive difference in their communities. We were represented there by over 50 countries in all states of the United States of America. You'll see the slide up now. That's an interesting slide. You go back one, please. The gentleman you see to the right-hand side of the screen happens to be a survivor of the Hiroshima bombing. And we did a ceremonial planting of an offspring of a tree that survived the Hiroshima bombing, which was later planted at the Japanese Gardens in Los Angeles. And that still goes on today, that we don't forget the horror and magnitude of those terrible weapons, and so that we can focus on eliminating them around the globe to make us all safer and our planet safer and our environment safer. Also, during that conference, we held a one-day conference for high school students so that they could learn positive peace skills. We brought in Anna Patel, a peace fellow with Outward Bound Peace Building, and Patricia Schaefer with New Gen Peace Building. And also, since we're associated with Institute for Economics and Peace, positive peace activators with actual solutions and how to build peace in their lives. And these three came together with about 500 students, and they shared that whole day long the skills they could develop to take back in their personal lives, create peace in their homes and their families, and create peace in their schools. There's nothing more valuable than teaching our young people the value of communicating together, growing together, and having peace in their lives. More locally in our district, we run 2 camps for students that are leadership camps and teach them skills. One happens to be for our 7th grade students that my wife and I have volunteered with for many years. It's called PRIDE, Personal Rotary Youth Development Experience, and they learn about themselves. One of the aspects of this 2-day, 1-night, overnight camp with 300 students together from all across Southern California is something that we all share. Each of us have different things that come into our lives that are problems. Sometimes we think we're the only ones that have to deal with these things. And our children are struggling to deal with these problems and to learn more about each other. And so we do something called Culture Walk, where we bring together the students in a group of about 75 and facilitate a very respectful sharing, where we ask the students to come forward, and then we ask them 3 questions. What's it feel like to be part of a group? What do you never want to hear again about being part of the group? What can we do to support your group? And we ask if you're female, step forward. And then we ask those questions of them, and the boys have to be quiet and listen. And then if you're male, come forward. Then we get to some more difficult situations. One of those is bullying. And when we asked if you ever been bullied, the stage was full of children. And one little 7th grade girl shared with me that her best friend had been cyberbullied and took her own life, had hung herself. And sure enough, that had happened to a student in Yucaipa here in Southern California. The tears are rolling down my face as I facilitated this discussion, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. But what happened on stage was remarkable because the students surrounded that girl and held her tight, letting her know she had support. When we got to a question, have you ever been abused? A little 7th grade boy said what he would like most would be for his mother's boyfriend to quit beating her. And of course, some of these are reportable, and so we got the police involved in that incident. But these are what our children are dealing with today. It'd be nice if they could just go to school, enjoy each other. But this one meeting here that lasts about an hour of the camp changes their lives forever, and they come together supporting each other and reaching out that they'll be able to take these things back to their own school and share with other people to stay positive, knowing that they're not alone, but they have a support group with lifelong friends. We also have a camp for high school juniors. It's called RYLA, Rotary Youth Leadership Awards. This is a program that's worldwide in Rotary. Every one of our 537 Rotary districts around the world has a camp for high school juniors. In our district, we have to have 2 camps because we send every year 600 high school juniors through a 3-day, 2-night camp on leadership skills that they develop and learning together. They'll make lifelong friendships amongst themselves, and they'll have a support group out there they'll carry into their adulthood and make changes in their lives. Additionally, you go to the next slide, please. We work internationally. In our district, for about 10 years now, we've adopted a village called Odawara Village outside of Kampala, Uganda. When we first went to the village, it had been ravaged over years, where rustlers had come through that area, stolen the cattle, killed off the adult males, and ravaged this little village. Our Rotary district came in with a project to make a difference there. And like to begin with, as all humans, one of the basic needs we have to have is clean water. And so we started off with clean water, put a well in that they could get and use for their own water there, but also eventually here for some of their crops and their animals. And then also, in order not to pollute your own water, you need sanitation. And so we put hygiene stations, facilities for them so that they could have sanitation facilities. Then the next step, like we do other things in Rotary, we continued on with economic and community development as one of the layers here. And so to help them be able to earn a living plus support themselves, we worked with the college in Kampala on the agriculture side to bring in beehives, to put in fruit trees, and to work on learning how to grow their own crops and support themselves. We also got sewing machines so the women could learn those skills and make some income that they could work on. Additionally, we know that education is core. Education literacy is very core to peace in the world. And in this village, we not only brought in education and books, chairs, a building for the school so that all the grade levels could go through instruction, but then also now we've followed these students through and supported their college so that each of them are supported to go to college if they care to in Kampala. And forever, this is changing the look and feel of this village. And of course, peace building is at a core of that. And one of the real needs and concerns is if you build up economically one village versus another in the area, they can become a target from those other ones, those other folks that are in need and are looking for the same things in their life. And so these villagers learned the process that we'd given them a hand up, and they shared it with local villages surrounding them. So together, they raised up the local economy and local villages and their skill base throughout that whole region, and has created peace in this whole area. And so that's one of the stories that we have in Rotary, and that's why I'm in Rotary. If we can save one child from being bullied and taking her own life, if we can save one little child from being abused, or a little boy or girl from being kidnapped into the sex trade, what's the value of that? And that's our power in Rotary, and that's our reach. So I look forward to seeing you and you'll be able to contact me. You can visit us in Maryland with our E-Club of World Peace, Rotary E-Club of World Peace, or you can visit with take a look at our speakers or on our Peace Conference 2020.org website and learn more. Thank you very much. Please go to your local club, reach out to our club, be part of Rotary. We create peace, we make friendships, we break down barriers. We can make this planet together a more peaceful place, but we need you to jump in, roll up your sleeves, join with us, and we'll be positive change, be the change you want to see in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Rudy. Rotary and all the different organizations you work with are so as part of the team, and you demonstrate how it's about us, each one of us, creating peace in our world, in our areas of connections and inspiration. So the next speaker is somebody that is a longtime friend and fellow humanitarian, Arun Gandhi. Arun and his wife have been longtime friends and advisors to US Foundation, the foundation I co-founded in 1996. Arun is the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi, and when he was young and living in South Africa, which is where he was born, he was severely discriminated against and mistreated because of his skin color. And this anger as a young man, 12 years old, was really difficult for his family to deal with. And they suggested that he go to live with his grandfather, Mahatma Gandhi, to learn about peace. And he learned very well, because now all his life, he has dedicated his life to peace. And he is, of course, the founder of the MK Gandhi Institute of Nonviolence, as well as his own foundation. And today we are blessed to have Arun here to share with us how one person can make a tremendous difference in the world in nonviolence and peace. Arun?
Thank you, Marilyn. It's nice to be with you again and to be able to talk and share with all of you. The wonderful presentation that Rudy gave is very inspirational, and it's a wonderful thing to see that the Rotary Club does some important work in social welfare. It's very important because I lived with my parents as a young boy and in Phoenix, South Africa, and all our neighbors in that area were poor African people who were laborers on somebody's farm or the other, and they were paid very little, and so they had very little to eat. And I found that my mother had a little store, and through the store she used to sell them vegetables and milk and yogurt and clothes and all of that. And she would put a ridiculous price on each item. I thought it was ridiculous because it was a penny a pint for milk, and nothing was more expensive than 6 pennies. And so one day I asked my mother, I said, why do you put these prices and charge them this money? And she was a very simple person and a very simple advice that she gave me, but it's really very profound. She said that we have to honor their dignity. Just because they are poor, they should not be treated in a way that they become dependent on us. When we give them things for free and hand out things to them, that indicates that we are superior and we can afford to give them a little bit of sustenance, and they should be grateful for that. And that is not the kind of attitude we want them to go away with. So she was very keen that we not only do charity, but do charity in the way that would build their self-respect and self-confidence and make them eventually, good citizens and able to sustain themselves. I thought that was a very profound lesson early on in my life. And then, of course, I heard from grandfather who said that charity has two forms, one that is motivated by pity and the other that is motivated by compassion. When we see somebody hungry and we give them a few dollars or a few cents and walk away from there, we are basically telling them, here, take this and, get something to eat. And we are not really concerned about their future. So we make them dependent and they sit there and depend on charity every day. But if we work out of compassion, then we would stop to find out, why are these people incapable of taking care of themselves, and what can we do to help them raise them self-respect and self-confidence so that they can stand on their own feet. And that is the difference between the two types of charity. And I always have been compelled to do charity in the sense of helping people build their self-respect and self-confidence. We do work for peace. We are all very conscious about wanting peace in our world, and we work for peace. But we've got to first understand what we mean by peace. Generally, I have found whenever I ask anybody what do they mean by peace, they say it's the absence of war or absence of fighting. That if our neighborhood is quiet and peaceful and no fighting there, then we are living in peace. But that is not true, because we commit violence in many different ways, in ways that we don't even realize it's violence. And this was a lesson that my grandfather taught me about physical violence and passive violence. Now, we all know everything about physical violence because we see it every day, we feel it every day, we read about it, we see all the wars and the killings and beatings and all that. But we have not paid any attention to the passive violence. And the passive violence takes the form of discrimination, oppression, suppression, economic, political, social, cultural, religious, and the hundreds and hundreds of things that we do every day without knowing that we are doing violence to somebody. And it's that passive violence that we really need to understand. And to make me understand this, he made me draw a family tree of violence. Just as we do our own family trees with violence as the grandparent and physical violence and passive violence as the two branches. And every day before I went to bed, I had to analyze and examine everything that I had done during the day and put them down on their appropriate places on that tree. If it was physical violence, it would go under physical violence. But if it's passive violence, then it would go under passive violence. And the way I had to determine whether this was passive violence or not was to ask myself the simple question: if somebody were to do this to me, would I be hurt by it or would I be helped by it? And if I came to the conclusion that it would hurt me, then that would be passive violence. And when I did this introspection at the age of 12, I was amazed that I was able to fill up a whole wall in my room with acts of passive violence. The physical violence didn't grow very much because there's a limit to what you can do physically. But the passive violence grew endlessly. And that is when he explained to me the connection between the two. That we commit passive violence all the time, every day, consciously and unconsciously. And that generates anger in the victim, and the victim then resorts to physical violence to get justice. So it is passive violence that fuels the fire of physical violence, So logically, if we want to put out that fire of physical violence, we have to cut off the fuel supply. And since the fuel supply comes from passive violence that we all practice, we have to become the change we wish to see in the world. So the only way we can achieve peace is by changing our own attitudes and realizing all our weaknesses and transforming those weaknesses into strengths. Now, that is part of the whole process of creating peace in the world. And also, there is the process of being actively, compassionately involved in trying to help people who are less fortunate than us. So, some years ago, I came across um, the lady in Kolhapur. Her name is Anuradha Bhosle, and she was doing wonderful work all by herself, trying to rescue young children who were being exploited as child labor and who were being otherwise sold into prostitution or into uh, other kinds of exploitable trades. And she started rescuing them and housing them and giving them food and shelter. And when I saw her dedication and the work that she was doing, I decided to partner with her and help her expand her work so that we could both together reach out to many more children. So we've recently built a dormitory where we can house girls who from all ages, from young 6, 7 years old to 16, 18 years old. We house them there and give them shelter, education, food, and everything. The picture you see now are the young children of laborers who lost their jobs during the COVID-19 crisis. And they have been thrown out into the streets because they had no home. They had a little shed in which they lived. Now they don't have a job and they don't have a home. So we have been feeding about 250 children every day, 3 meals a day, plus their parents, and distributing grains and food to about 1,000 families in that area. That, of course, is a temporary thing during this COVID, and we hope that eventually they will all get a job and be able to sustain themselves. But these are the children we have been uh, helping and educating throughout the last 10, 15 years. And they have grown up. Some of them have gone to college. Last year, I was very happy to learn that 8 of the students, they were the first generation to go to school. And they were, all 8 of them were distinguished uh, grades in their final high school examination. They all got A plus grades in all the subjects, and they have gone on to colleges and universities for further studies. All of that is paid through this organization to help them achieve that. Many of them have learned and come back to help through their own efforts to help us in doing this work there. And there are many things that we can do individually and collectively. They may not seem very big, but all the little changes that we bring in society, we have to make those changes so that eventually we can destroy the disparities that exist between us today. The picture you see now are some of the adult students who live in the dorms there, who had demonstrated welcome program for visitors. I take a batch every year on a Gandhi Legacy tour from the United States. And you can see some of the members of the tour in there, uh, intermingling with the adult students. You have the next slide. This is also the same slide of the welcome program that they had to welcome the entire group. But the problem and the thing that we need to be concerned about is that because of the materialistic lifestyle that we have chosen all over the world, we have created many disparities. And with those disparities, we have created a whole caste system so that those who are poor and live at the bottom of the pyramid, they are looked down upon and discriminated and often dismissed as people who are incapable of achieving anything for themselves. And we need to break down those prejudices. We need to bring everybody together, create a world where everybody can live reasonably good lives and don't have to depend on others to help sustain them. This can be achieved. It's not impossible. You saw some of the work that the Rotary Club did in Kenya. They achieved that kind of upliftment of the poor people. Some of the work that I did in India also achieved that, and we can do this in many. I'm sure there are thousands of others who are doing similar things, and all of this adds up to breaking down those barriers and building bridges between people. That is the only way we can really um, build peace. Today we are told by the government that we have to build a strong army and spend a lot of money in weapons of destruction so that we can protect ourselves from people who are trying to steal from us or conquer us. I don't think anybody is really interested in conquering us or stealing from us. If we create a world where people can live a decent life, but as long as we have a world where more than half of the population lives in misery and the other half of the population lives in affluence, we are going to have a lot of problems there. So what we need to do and convince our governments to do is that the stability and security of any individual, or for that matter, any nation, depends on the stability and security of the whole world. And we have to have that picture, and we have to have that kind of attitude where we can break down all these barriers and build bridges and help each other so that the world can become a better place for future generations. This is the kind of work that needs to be expanded and done by every individual. We cannot afford to be self-centered and just think about ourselves and amass wealth for ourselves and our families. We need to think of others also and create that kind of an atmosphere of brotherhood and sisterhood between all the peoples of the world. That way we will be able not only to create peace among human beings, but we will be able to create a better environment, better ecology, and save this world from the destructive attitudes of the materialistic world. So these are some things that I wanted to share with all of you, and I hope it will inspire you to do something on your own.
Thank you, Arun. As always, you just get me so motivated to even do more. Between you and Rudy, we have great examples of how one person can make a difference in the world by collaborating and moving forward in righting a lot of the injustices in the world, and there's a lot. Arun mentioned a little while ago about when 50% of the world is not being treated well. We have right now 50% of the world that's not treated well, and that is of the female gender. This January, Rudy had his Rotary World Peace Conference, and I was a keynote there speaking about how to and why and how to empower women in business. Because truthfully, 50% of the generation of previous generation and as of right now, women are not getting equal treatment. And when 50% of the population is not getting equal treatment, there's no justice, there's no peace. So this is something that is very deep to my heart because I suffer from it personally, and I've learned my skills of how to thrive and survive in spite of those. And the video is on the World Peace Conference, Rotary World Peace Conference, as well as on YouTube. The next positive area that a person can get involved with is in helping people when they're young. In India, US Foundation, the foundation I founded, also coordinated Vitamin Angels, a global nonprofit that works, is based in the United States, that has over 70 million recipients of their support every year in 70 countries. And what they do is supply micronutrients to children and women particularly, because children, until they are 10 years old, preferably under 5, if they do not get enough vitamin A, their brains do not develop properly. They have a high probability of going blind and also other physical challenges. So to have something so simple as vitamin A, it makes a tremendous difference in people's lives. Here in Nandi Hills, India, we worked with 10,000 children. It's a 3-year program until they get to the point where they have enough nutrients, vitamin A in particular, to survive and thrive so that they get food development of the brain to achieve their food potential. Because when people do not achieve their food potential, we all suffer. So the next one comes also from working with another area where there's a lot of suffering in Bhutan. US Foundation partnered again with Vitamin Angels to work with Tarayana Foundation, which is founded by the Queen Mother of Bhutan, to work with 308, actually it's now 315, it grows every day, of villages in the remote Himalayan areas. These villages are so remote that it takes basically a day to hike down into areas where there's a village or town where they can get basic necessities. Where they live, they have to make basically everything, either grow it themselves, make it, or raise it. And obviously the healthcare is very challenging because they don't have much of anything up where they are. So we brought them, of course, micronutrients, taught them more about building community centers so that the area can support each other more, as well as provide them with trees and other fruit trees and other produce growing means so that they can provide for themselves and create income. So that's another way for us to make a difference in the world. Humanitarian work is not only in remote areas. Humanitarian work also needs to happen in what we call the developed areas in North America and in Europe. Here's a slide of myself in Greece, collaborating with the Euro-American Women's Council and the Greek government to do business and humanitarian work, particularly focus on women around the more developed nations. And then we must not ever forget about our backyard. Right here in our own backyard, where I live in California, we had tremendous mudslides. Actually, we had fires first, wildfires, and which was followed very quickly by what they call 500-year rains and floods. And the mudslides destroyed many, many homes, many structures, and killed dozens of people. One thing that we could do as individuals is partner with other people to make a difference. So Rotary Club, us Foundation, and the Boy Scouts came together, and we replanted trees all along by the stream beds in different areas so that we can secure the soil, so that the next time when there is rain or floods or fires, we have a little more stability. So wherever you are, there's something you can do to make a difference by yourself and in partnering with others, because truthfully, when we work together is where we really make a difference. So because there's no them, there's only us here. So I'd like to turn it back over to Arun to ask Arun for your words of advice and wisdom you would offer our participants. How would they serve better and how to create more peace, starting from wherever they are now?
Well, I think first of all, we need to work on ourselves. Because of, again, I go back to the culture of violence that we have created. The culture of violence tends to spread a lot of hatred. And that hatred satiates us. We are filled with hatred, so we have no place for sorrow in our lives. We need to get rid of that hatred. And the only way we can get rid of that hatred is by getting rid of that culture of violence and replacing it with a culture of nonviolence, which brings out a lot of the compassion and respect and understanding that we all possess, but we suppress it because of the culture of violence that we are overwhelmed by. So we need to do that work on ourselves first. And that is why Gandhi said we must be the change we wish to see in the world. And then with the change within ourselves, we can then help people outside and show more compassion and love and respect for them. Now that is very important. Today, I know many people have these programs about teaching tolerance to children. And I am against it because I don't want children to learn how to tolerate people. I want them to learn how to respect people. Tolerance is a very negative kind of thing. We can tolerate somebody we don't like or don't respect just because we are told to do that by law or we are required to do it by society. And that is not the kind of relationship that I would like to have between people. I would like more respect and understanding and compassion to be displayed in human beings. And that can happen only if we teach children right from their little childhood that, we have to accept people, whatever they are, poor or rich or whatever, and we have to respect them and not look down on them. I learned this lesson because I was again living in Phoenix with my parents, and as I told you earlier, all the people around us were very poor laborers working on the fields, on the farms of somebody. And so I used to play with those children, but they didn't have anything at all. They didn't have even clothes, proper clothes to wear. And so my parents used to tell me and teach me that that is because they don't have any money to buy all these things. And for that, we should not look down on them, but we should respect them that they are continuing to live and survive in spite of all those difficulties. So they said I should play with them and try to learn from them how do they play and entertain themselves without toys. Today, all of us who are affluent and have the abilities, we just go to the shop and buy dozens of toys for our children. They play with them for a few days and then throw them away because they are bored and they want something new. And that whole cycle just goes on and on. And in many homes, you'll find the whole basement full of toys that children have discarded, and they are still perfectly good. Now, these kids don't have the means to buy toys, but yet they were able to entertain themselves. And what I found was that they allowed their imagination to take over, and they used to create things out of their imagination. We had a spot in Phoenix where there was a lot of clay soil, and we used to go and dig up clay from there and make all kinds of figurines, animal figurines and human figurines, and play with them. So building things out of imagination and playing with them, we loved it so much that we never destroyed them. We used to make little mini cars with discarded matchboxes and buttons and build them ourselves. When I became a teenager and I wanted uh, to have a tennis court because we had a lot of land there, and I asked my parents, I said, can we have a tennis court here so that we could play tennis? And they said, sure, you can have it provided you are willing to build it yourself. And I said yes, not knowing what it meant. But two of my friends and I spent the entire summer holidays building that tennis court, from leveling the ground, digging the ground with hand tools, leveling it, and then laying it with clay and pulling the rollers over it. It was hard work. We had adults who were guiding us in how to do it, but we had to do it ourselves. And when we built that tennis court, we appreciated it so much that we played on it every moment we got a chance, and played from early morning till late in the evening because we built it with our own hands. Today, we don't do that. We don't allow people to develop their imaginations or their, build things with their own hands. And so we have become um, a very wasteful society. So these little things we have to be considerate about, and we have to learn and teach about. So we bring up children who learn to respect others and have compassion for those who are less fortunate than them and are willing to share and give to them.
Thank you, Arun. That was really meaningful, because a lot of times we're looking outside for change. But as you said,
Yeah.
what your father said, it has to come from within. We have to first learn that we are making judgment. We are making separation. We are making all the negative thoughts, whether, as you say, it may not be conscious physical action, but we are
Yeah.
making the determination in our own thoughts of violence. So
Right.
start ourselves, and from there use our imagination to create what is really possible instead of relying on money and other technologies to really fulfill our lives. That's really cool. Thank you so much. Rudy, from your perspective, how would you counsel our participants on how to make a positive difference? Because you have now developed a network pretty much worldwide, also through Rotary and other work you've done to make a difference.
I think I would, and as I was listening to Arun, I was thinking about of some of these different ways. You know, our children, when they're born, are really colorblind. They also aren't born with hate in their hearts and their minds. And so, first of all, for parents, turn off the news on the TV and model the way for your children on how you want them to be when they grow up. They follow your example. If you go to the grocery store and your children go with you, and one of the people there is cleaning up the floor, you might say thank you. You might say thank you to the person that rings the cash register for you, or talk to the produce person that's stocking the shelves. Each of those jobs is essential. It doesn't mean that they don't have a PhD or a different degree, but they're human beings. Every life out there has value. And to help your children grow, model the way for those. And then also as an adult, model that way for others around you. You'd be surprised when you share a kind word with another person, the person behind you is watching. And they're likely to share that kind word and pass it on and learn from that. There's basic caring and love for another person. We all have basic needs. And those needs are to connect, feel compassion for each other, love in our hearts. Each of us have our ability to grow and expand. And I would think that the way for you to do that is to reach out in your community and look for those needs. Is there a senior center where maybe an adult is blind and you could read a book to that person? Maybe there's right now, because of COVID-19, you could pick up the phone and make sure you call a relative, call somebody that's shut in, bring a meal for them. But I think this is a lesson that we should learn from what's happening with this pandemic right now, that we can still be connected. And we are one humanity. And Arun mentioned that we're very materialistic. All of that can be gone in a moment. What matters is our personal relationships, our being human, sharing our needs, sharing our successes, sharing what we have with others, helping them learn to grow, support themselves, support their families, and create peace in their homes and communities. When you get up in the morning, put a smile on your face, be thankful for what you have that you woke up, and grow yourself every day. Learn something new to reach out and change the world. Get yourself centered in the morning and then carry on during the day. There's a way to connect right now, and I hope you will take a look at Rotary. We are in every country and territory out there. There's a huge need, and they have a support team that'll connect you across the globe. Don't be afraid to take on these big issues. One person can make a huge difference. Be the next Greta Thunberg if you're listening to this and you happen to be in high school. You can move mountains if you're willing to do that and bring your fellow students along with you. We have service organizations with our high school students and middle school students in our school systems, as well in our colleges. So teach service early on in your child's life, and they'll carry that on for their children and their children's children. And the act of service and giving that fills your heart full of warmth and love every day is important. And that's a lesson learned. Plant those positive seeds and nourish them, fertilize them, water them, and watch them grow in your own mind, in your children, in your grandchildren, and all those you come in contact with. I think that would be my message, Marilyn.
Thank you, Rudy. Between you and Arun, I am inspired and motivated to even do more than I've ever done before. But I also realize that we have to start with one step, each conscious thought. And whether it is to do something for, as Rudy said, with your neighbor or with your children or in our own thoughts, we can start there. And then whatever your passion, whether it is for the environment, whether it's for BLM, whether it's for whatever the cause, you can start there, because all of it comes back together to peace, to unity. And truthfully, that's what we're here for, is because until we are all feeling treated equally and equitably, we are not at peace as a people, as humanity, and as a planet. So we're going to show you the URLs of all our different websites. So if you want to follow up later on any of the things you heard or to participate in some way, you're most welcome. But please start with your community, with your passions, because truthfully, that's where change happens, is where your passion, your commitment, and your interests come together with something that you can make a difference in today and now. So peace be with you and blessings, and thank you for joining us today.